Welcome back to the Books Brothers podcast. I'm Adam, aka Flez, and I'm here with the bros.
I'm Stalin.
I'm Garrett.
Robbie Rowe.
I'm Thomas.
Today we're diving into part 3 of Endurance by Alfred Lansing. In this section, Shackleton's leadership is pushed to its limits, the crew faces brutal decisions, near starvation, and the emotional toll of waiting for anything, to go their way. It's a test of resilience, unity, and the ability to keep going when all you want to do is quit. Before we dig in, think about this. What's a moment in your life where you felt like giving up? What or who helped you keep going? And here is a quick summary of what went down in part 3. Shackleton's crew begins a grueling 200-mile march across the Antarctic ice, pulling sledges loaded with supplies and boats. The terrain is treacherous. Frozen ridges and cracks in the ice force the men to clear paths with pickaxes, slowing their progress to a crawl. After 5 days, they realize their effort has been futile. They've covered little ground, and the physical toll on the crew is immense. Shackleton decides they must abandon the march and set up camp. They name this place Marktime Camp, reflecting their growing frustration and despair. For the first time, the men start to question Shackleton's judgment, wondering if his optimism is misplaced. Food shortages become a looming threat. Orderly, the storekeeper, kills 3 seals while skiing, but Shackleton refuses to let the men retrieve the carcasses, citing the danger of returning to the site and his belief that they have enough provisions. This decision sparks resentment among the men, who begin to question Shackleton's optimism. Shackleton also orders some of the sled dogs to be shot to preserve food for the crew. The men are devastated. The dogs have become loyal companions, offering emotional comfort in an otherwise bleak existence. While the decision is practical, it takes a significant toll on morale. The crew establishes Patience Camp on an ice floe that they hope will drift north toward open water. It is a precarious existence. Seal and penguin meat become their primary diet, but the lack of variety causes GI issues and gnawing hunger. Some men resort to eating raw, frozen bits of blubber and meat. Shackleton writes in his diary, waiting, capturing the excruciating monotony and uncertainty. As time drags on, tension rises among the crew. Arguments break out, including one between Dr. Macklin and the biologist Clark that results in spilled milk, a precious resource. Despite this, the crew demonstrates moments of camaraderie, such as when they pool their milk to replace Greenstreet's portion, reminding one another of their shared humanity. The ice floe becomes increasingly unstable as temperatures rise. At night, cracks form beneath their tents, forcing them to scramble to save supplies. Shackleton's tent is split in two one morning, further driving home the dangerous instability of their situation. When a massive crack threatens the James Caird, one of their lifeboats, the crew works together to drag it to safety. Meanwhile, Wild shoots a 1,000-pound sea leopard, a much-needed source of food and fuel, but the reprieve is short-lived. As the floe continues to shrink, Shackleton decides they can wait no longer. He gives the quiet order, launch the boats. The crew loads into 3 small lifeboats, the Dudley Docker. I'm sorry, but this is just like...
I'd be in that boat.
A good question to start with is, which boat would you want to be on? So what are 3 boats?
The Dudley Docker, the Stancomb Wills, and the James Caird. The boats, each just 22 feet long, are crammed with men and supplies. Leaving the ice floe behind is a gamble. Open water is perilous, but staying on the unstable ice is no longer an option. The men row into the unknown, hoping to find safety on land before the brutal Drake Passage claims them. As they leave the ice, the enormity of their journey becomes clear. Survival is still far from certain, but they have no choice but to move forward. This section captures the darkest moments of the journey, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and the difficult choices Shackleton had to make to keep his crew alive. For the first question, the sled dogs were more than just work animals. They were companions, a symbol of loyalty and resilience. Shackleton's decision to shoot them was logical but emotionally devastating for the crew. When have you had to let go of something or someone that represented hope or comfort in your life? How did it impact you, and what helped you move forward?
I think of probably bigger impacts when I was younger. But then also I would say, I think in general for me, I have been fortunate to not have to lose someone extremely close other than like grandparents in their old age. You know, it was sad, but it was also like, you know, that's what happens when you get old. And in my situation, answering this question is probably more of people I really look up to. So in junior high and high school, when a youth pastor who I really admired would out of nowhere like quit or like leave for a different job or differing views on the youth group than the main pastors or something like that, was like, this is really hard. How are we going to move forward? Or something like that. Like, or people who I would view as like, quote, stalwarts of the faith. And then they had some big sin.
Scandal.
That's the word. And just really kind of like wrecking me of like, man, am I putting my hope in this guy or woman, I guess, but mainly it's men in my situation, or in Jesus and in the spiritual sense. And yeah, it definitely impacted me. It helps. It makes me like reflect on what am I actually putting my hope in? You know, we talk about how demoralization in last week's episode was the key to having hope, is the key to survival. And sometimes you don't know what you're putting your hope in until it gets taken away, and losing people you really look up to or have had a big impact in your life can really sort of rock you to the core, or the foundation that you kind of put some of your life's hope in that you didn't realize you did. And I think what helps you move forward is, you know, who you have. Like family is so key. I'm grateful for you guys. The podcast, the book club, has helped us stay in touch. But as we've moved around the country and whatnot, it's hard to keep in touch with all your college buddies and so many good friends who it's just hard to keep up. But like, you always have your family. And I think that's an example of a way to move forward, or how it's helped me is, all right, this pastor who had this massive scandal, he's not my ultimate hope and why I go to church. So reset, finding people I can confide in, trust in, and make sure I'm keeping my eyes fixed on the proper mark.
Yeah, I think every time I've moved, I feel like there's some component of leaving comfort. Or back in college, I stayed in Springfield for a lot longer than you guys doing graduate school, and in the same category of kind of like losing comfort, losing normalcy a little bit. But I think in those scenarios, kind of like Garrett mentioned, regrounding and like really redefining like what my identity is in. And I really remember it specifically whenever I moved from Springfield to Arizona. And I think it was just like a time in my life where I really realized that these people that I was moving to be around, they didn't know me. There was no shared past. And so in a sense, it was like I was going to have to prove to people that I was like essentially like a good person again. And I think that over time, that kind of thought became a good thing, because it made me realize that what my identity is really in, why do I really want people to think this way or that way about me, and how do I want to be perceived?
Yeah.
I definitely identify with you there about moving. I moved a couple of times growing up, and then to Springfield for college, and then after college a couple times. And that environment and the people there that you're comfortable with is definitely something you take for granted until you have to leave and sort of reinvent yourself, or turn over a new leaf, or prove yourself again, like you said. And you do have to let go of kind of your old self in a sense, because you have to do a lot of things over again and think through a lot of things about, you know, what you want or what you want to stand for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go the dog route with this. So I liked on page 120, it was the basic human need to love something, the desire to express tenderness in this barren place. That came around the time that they were contemplating if they should take the dogs or not. To be honest, this chapter was kind of like, I was telling the Adams here, it was kind of took a toll on me personally, because I read it in different sections and I'd come back to it and it'd be like, okay, where am I at? And it's like, oh no, we're just stuck on ice still. Like not much going on in the chapters in terms of keeping the reading exciting. And definitely when you get to the dog part, it's sad. You know, I have a dog, an elderly dog, and I've had him since I was 23. So I've had him for 11 years. it's a source, like he's a place of comfort for me. And he's obviously pushing up in age, and I've gone there mentally as to like what that's going to be like when his time is up, but it's going to impact me a lot because my routine involves him. I walk him multiple times a day, and like just thinking of, wow, am I still going to walk? Like when I don't have him, like, am I going to still go on my laps around the neighborhood without him? It's tough to think about. And I'm sure they were in a tough spot too, knowing that things that could bring them joy were essentially a burden, and they were going to execute them. It's sad.
I had to let go of my dog, Nyla. I had to let her go to my ex, but she represented a lot of hope and comfort in my life. That was extremely hard. I was crushed, but God does weird things sometimes. I think the reason that happened was probably because it forced me to be social in other ways. Whereas if I might have had a dog still, I might have not gone out of my way to be around family as much or do more social things, and that might not have helped me move forward after that relationship ended. So I'm sure there's always a silver lining, but yeah, like what helped me move forward was finding other things to fill the void. Honestly, family, friends, getting healthier, all the good stuff that we've talked about already. Shackleton's refusal to retrieve the seals showed his unshakable belief that they'd be fine with what they had. While optimism is important, it can sometimes border on denial. How do you personally find the balance between staying hopeful and being realistic in tough situations? And have you ever had a moment when optimism blinded you to a problem?
Can we put this question in the context a little bit? Because reading it, I couldn't exactly understand why Shackleton didn't want to keep those seals. Like, it's not like they had to really go anywhere at that time, right? Or were they trying to pick up and move, and that's why I didn't want to carry them? I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but it just seemed to me like there was no reason for him to let go of all that meat.
I agree. I was annoyed by it too.
I do think it was along the lines off of memory with what you said, Thomas. I think for one, they had been killing seals like daily. So I think they just had like a ton of stock. I do remember them saying because they tried to preserve bullets, and they had to like literally like bludgeon them to death in their head. Like it was extremely bloody, and they're very heavy. And it's like, hey, we have plenty of seals. We have more than enough. And I don't know if it would go bad because it's so cold there. Like for preserving it, I don't know, but
I think it was like he had seen they were killing a lot of seals, and he just assumed maybe that pattern would continue into the future. And then, when it didn't, in hindsight, everybody kind of blamed him for not retrieving some of those that they had hunted, right? I think that was kind of the context of this one.
I also think like it's probably just human nature to want to have something to be upset about, or to like,
yeah, for sure,
to vent to target your frustration towards, right? So you're stuck in the middle of nowhere. You're constantly wet and cold. There's no end in sight. And it's like the one thing literally keeping you alive is these seals. And they had one fight, right, where one guy's like, hey, the contract I signed was to obey your orders while on the ship. We're not on the ship anymore, so I'm not going to keep going. And Shackleton's like, where are you going to go? And he's like, okay, yeah, you're right. All right, I'll listen. So I mean, like,
yeah,
the mental toil, and so it's like, wait, you don't want us to have food, and it's like we're gonna be mad at you now. And who knows if it was like they probably all knew how much food they had, but there was one guy who was OCD about starving, and I'd probably be on that. I mean, I think there's some legitimate arguments, obviously. I also think there's probably just like people are really frustrated, and that was a prime opportune moment to vent your frustration at your captain, right?
I tend to have the problem of not being optimistic enough, I think, more than I have the problem of being too optimistic and being blinded by things. So I probably would have done more of along the lines of what Shackleton did and pissed everybody off, or the opposite rather, because he was too optimistic. I think I would have been like kill more seals, and then we got too many and we can't move or something.
Same. I would have been like that too. I was kind of annoyed. Like why it just didn't strike to me why he said don't kill anymore. Like, what are you doing, dude?
He might have been trying to find ways to where, like, when it came time to move, there was no reason that anybody would want to stay there any longer. It was like, if we have this big store of food that we can't move, then if we get a chance to break out of here, people are going to want to stay because they're scared to leave all this meat behind or something. So, like, that might have been a really good leadership decision if they had gotten the chance to actually get somewhere, which is really what they all wanted to do, was to leave.
I think that had something to do with it as well, Thomas. Again, I can't find the part in the book, but I think you're on the right track there. Yeah.
All right. Next question. The crew's dark humor, including jokes about cannibalism, was a way to cope with their dire circumstances. Imagine being on an ice floe starving while someone cracks a joke about turning you into stew. If you were stuck in Shackleton's crew, what's the weirdest or funniest thing you think you'd do to keep everyone's spirits up? And how do you think their crew would react?
Stage a situation where a bunch of people are asleep, and then you and a couple buddies go out and get in like some seal carcasses, and then sound the alarm that it's time to go hunt. And then when they come out to club you, you like jump out and scare them.
I could really backfire.
Literally fire.
They try to club you, and then you club them first. Be like the seals strike back.
Have you seen that Zombie Land with Bill Murray?
Oh yeah. Oh,
he's like, acts like he's a zombie.
Yeah, I've
He's
seen
like,
that.
do you think you're gonna make it? And he looks at him and he goes, no.
I think my favorite part of that, Garrett, is they're like, well, do you have any regrets?
Yes.
And you're like expecting him to say like that I dressed up like a zombie. And he's like, well, probably doing Garfield.
Yeah.
Which is like a movie he actually did that didn't land well. I was reminded of, I'll say one of the things that I thought that was just hilarious that they did, but then, I was like looking back at the first part where they did a mock trial, and the mock trial was over someone having stole a trouser button from the church offering. I mean, like, just like ridiculous stuff to entertain yourself. I think in these kind of scenarios, my go-to would be like a recurring daily like slogan that's kind of funny the first time, and then it's not funny for like the next like 7 or 8 times, and then it's kind of funny again, and then it's not funny again for a while. I think of like the Truman Show, where like he has like a saying, and the saying is like deeper when he says it the last time before he walks off the set. So, I mean, that would probably be just a small thing that I would do, but it would also probably annoy the crap out of people.
So you'd get up in the morning and say, it looks like it snowed last night.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then everybody roll their eyes every single time until like they were just so tired of it that it was funny again.
Yeah. I keep having this dream that I wake up,
I think being a Penske, it would have to be something with yellow snow.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, yeah, so much yellow snow.
I think every time a guy would like get snow to make into ice or make into water to drink, he would do that whole process, and then as he's taking the sip, be like, "Oh, I peed where you got that snow from." Every time,
you know it.
Snow cones, get your snow cones. Lemon lime.
I think playing jokes about food would be one of them for sure. Like, because everybody's so obsessed with their portion, pretending that you ate someone else's portion or something and freaking them out for a second would be pretty funny.
Those be fighting words.
Yeah, that's the kind of humor I do, where I like play to, in my more immature days, I would play to people's weaknesses. So that Orderlies guy who was obsessed with not starving to death, like, get everyone in on the joke and like, hey, when he's asleep, move all the food. Like, he wakes up, it's like, guys, where's the food? And just like everyone's in on it but him, and make him think like we're out of food, we are going to die. Stuff like that.
Maybe change everybody's desktop background while they're asleep to some goofy picture. Oh wait, no, never mind, it's not current day.
Or like the games that everyone played in their tents, like just take one card from like Shackleton's deck So they only have 51 cards. Just like really set them off
for like months, and then like, oh, I found this card.
Yeah, the 5 of clubs has just been missing the whole time.
Well, we didn't even talk about the cannibalism humor. I was going to say the biggest guy on the crew, people joked about how they were going to eat him first because he had the most meat on him. That's pretty dark, but it is.
That'd be Flez.
You could see how that would be really funny. Yeah, Flez is freaking storehouse right there, dude.
I would be after a while.
Was regretting to do those 700-pound deadlifts.
Imagine the fillets you could get on that behind.
You know what though? You don't want that. It's too lean. It's like 93.7. That's no fun. You want some 2080, bud.
It's probably 99.2.
Yeah,
Wow,
I don't know.
That doesn't even add up.
I know, Penske.
Well, there's only one part of Flez that would have a lot of fat. We all know what that part is.
Dead ass.
The old gluteus maximus.
Hey, so Flez, my cousin married a gal from Mexico City. I mean, she lives in Omaha. They live outside of Omaha now, but she grew up in Mexico City. And her 4 and 2-year-old are even fluent in Spanish and English, I guess. They're learning it. But I kept on saying, mi espalda. And she was like, yeah, you're back? What about it?
Oh, I'm so glad I said that in our tent that morning. I remember that.
Oh, dude, that was so funny. What was our tent called again?
I think it had to do with you all being the snore house or something like that.
Snizzle crib.
Snizzle crib. Snizzle crib. We need to get hats that say that or something. Snizzle crib 2024.
You want no sleep? You want your espalda to hurt? Join us in the Snizzle crib.
Dude, there was a little bit of dark humor there during our hike when we decided to do the extra 8-mile trip that the chick was telling us not to do, and Flez's knee was broken.
That's what I would do with Stalin, as we if we were all on the ice together. That's how I'd get under Stalin's skin. Like, Stalin, I don't think we should hike back to the boat. I don't think you can make it. Like it's really like, have you been to the boat lately? There's a lot of hills. Stalin, you really need to stay put and just stay at the
Everybody
camp.
would just try to hold Stalin back from doing extremely difficult things.
Just everyone like
frustrated.
Physical stamina.
Stalin, I don't think you have enough energy for that.
Stalin, you're just not. You can't do it.
You're too skinny, man.
Yeah. You gotta stay back and patch the tents.
I gotta get off the call. I'm gonna let you guys go.
You know what I hear builds dark humor really well is being in any arm of the military. I've heard that from multiple people who are like veterans or in the military, because a lot of times I feel like those guys are out in these austere environments and things just kind of suck, and you just it all seems to end with people telling jokes about dark things. I think it must be a pretty good way to guard yourself or kind of like put up a barrier against losing some of that hope or keeping your spirits up,
I'm definitely a morbid joker in uncomfortable situations, which my wife does not like. So I try to stop that. But yeah, like when there's a tornado nearby and the sirens going off, like truly going off, it's like, all right, we got to go to the storm shelter.
Like the movie Twisters?
Yeah, just like the movie Twisters.
Yeah, he lives in Oklahoma.
It is not uncommon for me to be like, man,
I'll show you Twisters.
Yeah, it's like I'll just make jokes like glad we increase the life insurance if anything happens to me. Or, like I'll just say stuff like that. Or before I leave for a work trip, like, can't wait to see you when you get back. And I'm like, yeah, hopefully I make it back. Like I'll just say stuff like that. It doesn't go over well, so I've cut it down. But sometimes I will make morbid jokes just in the moment to perhaps, laugh off the unease of like, what if our house literally gets hit by this tornado? Or yeah, what if that Southwest 737 flight we're on is one of those 2 crashes of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, last question. Amid the chaos, the crew created routines from meal preparation to banter to maintain a sense of normalcy. These small acts seem to ground them in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. What rituals or routines have helped you endure a tough or uncertain period in your life? Why do you think those small habits make such a big difference when everything else feels out of control?
I feel like, Flez, you have so many answers for this one. You're a routine guy, and
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
very.
it's actually been really good most of the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty ritualistic. I do have every morning, I do the exact same thing every single morning. And when I'm done at work, the exact same thing. It puts like a sense of stability in my life, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like, my work isn't very normal. I'm not always doing the same thing. So like 9 to 5, it's like very different every day. So having like my own ritual every morning and evening gives me a sense of stability. But yeah, every morning I wake up, meditate for 15 minutes, seated. I even have a meditation cushion now, so I'm super zen. And then I do the Bible app. I do gratitude journal where I write down 4 things I'm grateful for, and then take Nova out and get going. And then at night I get back and do another meditation that's laying down, more for like relaxation and kind of like emotional release from the day. And then I also do a non-NSDR right before that to kind of help guide me. So I do like a 10-minute NSDR, which is a guided meditation basically that helps me relax. And then I do my own lying meditation right after that. And then that kind of helps me separate work from rest, honestly. I notice if I don't do that, my conversations are not as dialed back. So I'm still stressed from the day. So yeah, those are just a few. Then obviously I do cold plunges and lifts and trail runs and cardio and all that good stuff too. Those are my
These guys have a lot in common with you. They probably did a lot of cold plunges too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Unintentional.
Yeah. I like to think that I could make it out there, but 40 degrees in a cold plunge is still nothing compared to, what these guys are facing. Yeah.
Brutal. I have a hard time getting myself to like stick to routines. I think my personality is such that I try to stay flexible in a lot of ways. But what I really need a lot of times is to have certain things in my life that are still routine.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, I have this feeling a lot of times that I haven't done enough to finish the day. So I want to stay up later than I should and get some more things done or read something or, whatever it is. And so like the nighttime kind of bedtime routine is something that I've noticed. If I can get to bed at the right time, the next day tends to just kind of flow the way it should. And if I can't, that's like kind of an anchor, I guess, for me.
Yeah.
Is whether I can get to bed, wake up at the right time, and then everything else seems to go a lot better. But yeah, I think I would actually benefit from more routine on average.
Yeah, I think similar to what with Flez kind of sharing all that, I think for me it's almost like the checklist of like the things that I try to get these certain things done every day. And Thomas, you kind of mentioned getting to the end of the day and feeling like you've accomplished something. And so for me, I feel like I have like that checklist, and it's, did I run? Did I spend time in the Bible? Did I spend time reading something else? Did I get quality time with Ruth? I don't think I'm getting all those done every day, but if I can knock most of those off, I do feel like for me it does give me a sense of normalcy. And I think, Adam, hearing you talk about work stuff, it's really an encouragement to me because I've been doing my role now for a year and a few months, and I feel like I still haven't got that sense of like having a routine in the workday because it is so variable. And I think you kind of bring it up, trying to implement like work specific routines is a good thought and something I probably need to do a better job implementing.
What are you thinking?
I mean, so one thing I feel like I spend probably like 3 to 4 hours a week doing is like independent research on the pathology that I treat. So that our device treats, so aortic aneurysms. And so, spending, maybe being more specific of like, okay, I'm going to spend at least 20, 30 minutes every day and having it be more of a grounding thing. of like, okay, I'm gonna do this. If I have a day where I don't have a surgery, this is like the first thing I want to do in the day before I get on to any task that I might have.
That's cool that you do that.
Oh, I'm saying I mean, I have independent research now, but I don't have it. It's not like ritualized. But I think, again, Adam's Adam sharing that. It's like, maybe I should ritualize that more. Have it be more specific.
Okay. But no, I just meant like in general that you're taking it upon yourself to do that research. I think what you guys are all talking about, and if I would summarize, is it's just the groundedness component that no matter if there's chaos going on in your life, these few things you can always come back to. They'll keep you grounded. They'll keep you going. They'll push you forward and help you come out on the other side.
I think as humans, we all crave a sense of purpose and a sense of being able to control something in our lives. And routines give you both of those things, especially in a situation like these guys were in. They got to find some way to feel like they are purposeful and they have control over something, because they're just sitting on a piece of ice that's just flying around in whatever direction the wind blows that day.
Yeah.
Literally.
You guys would be seeing me out there meditating on the ice for sure. I'd be like with Wim
Hof, yeah.
Next level.
Flez be getting that wind going west, not east.
Yeah.
All right. So here are some key lessons from part 3 of endurance. Hard choices define true leadership. Making the right call isn't always easy or popular. Patience is action. Waiting isn't passive. It's one of the hardest things we do when survival is at stake. Laughter is survival. Humor, even in the darkest times, can be a lifeline to hope. And adversity builds trust. Shackleton earned his crew's faith by showing up when it mattered most. To our listeners, think about the role leadership, patience, humor, and trust have played in your own life. What's your Shackleton moment? And who do you turn to when you need guidance in the storm? Let us know your stories. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Books Brothers podcast. Shackleton and his crew are finally leaving the ice behind, but their fight for survival is far from over. In the next episode, we'll explore their journey at sea and their desperate push to find solid ground. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who could use a reminder of what resilience and leadership look like in action. Until next time, remember, the ice will crack, but it's how you respond that defines your story. Stay strong, and we'll catch you next time.